Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thanks very much for coming. Welcome to Migration. It's great to have you here. Some faces I recognise and others I don't. I think we've got people from a few colleges here, some on graduate visas and others on working holiday visas, as you've told me. So today's seminar is going to be all about childcare and what possibilities there are to ultimately apply for permanent residence if you study childcare in Australia. And we'll be talking about both diploma and bachelor degree. So the diploma of early childhood care and education and the bachelor of ECT also. Okay, so all right, so I'll just give you an overview. So I'll just tell you what we're going to talk about today, just so you have an idea. Now the idea is I'll talk, you can ask questions as we go along, but probably what I tend to find is that in the course of this presentation, I may actually answer a lot of your questions already. So maybe if we leave most of the questions to the end, but if you have a burning question, then please just put up your hand and I'll answer it. Okay. We are recording today's seminar for the purpose of giving it to those people who aren't able to attend today. So just to confirm that also. So what we'll be talking about today, we're looking specifically at what pathways are available to student visa holders, to those who already have a 485 visa. We can even talk about those who have working holiday visas and what options are available to you. We'll be talking about what the training visa is. What is the Dharma? A lot of you want to know about this Dharma that has been talked about and written about in the media and it is on a lot of people's minds at the moment. The Dharma, particularly the Dharma in the Northern Territories. How to make yourself job ready. Everyone, by the way, you've all got a folder on your chair, which I'm sure you may have picked up already, and there's a few items in there that we'll talk about when we actually go through the presentation. So we'll talk a little bit about CV writing and interview techniques. How do you know what to do? We'll talk about, if you are thinking about going to a regional area, exactly what type of attributes you need to be able to do that. What do you need to think about really before you prepare to make a big life-changing decision, and what you'll walk away with after this seminar. Okay, so we'll just go through that. All right, fantastic. Thanks, David. So yeah, I'll talk about first of all what the graduate visa is, because there's quite a few of you here on a student visa. How many of you are here and you've got a student visa and you're studying the diploma of early childhood care and education? Okay, so a few of you. All right. How many of you here are studying the bachelor degree? Bachelor of ECT. Okay, there's a few of you. All right. So I'm going to, as I mentioned, I'll talk about both pathways, and I'm going to talk about the 485 visa as related to both of those qualifications. So some of you may know a lot about this visa already, but for those of you who don't, I'm just giving you a bit more of an explanation. So the 485 visa is the graduate visa. We've had it now for quite a few years. In Australia, it's a visa that allows students after their studies to be able to work full time. There are two streams. One is for 18 months and the other is for 2 years. And it depends on whether you've studied a diploma or a bachelor degree. So if you have studied a bachelor degree in Australia and you had your first student visa after November 2011, you're entitled to the post-study stream, which is a 2-year visa that allows you to work full-time for those 2 years. Okay, so you need to have an IELTS band of 6 or the equivalent in the Pearson's, the PTE, with no band lower than 5. And as I said, you must have studied a bachelor or master degree. Now, for those of you on the diploma, for example, the diploma in early childhood care and education, you are able to, as long as you've got 360 hours of work experience in your field, whether that's through the college or whether it's through work that you've done yourself in a childcare centre and been paid for, and you can use an occupation that's on the long-term list, such as childcare centre manager, then you can apply for the 485 visa, and it's the graduate work stream, and it's an 18-month visa. Okay, and these visas at the moment are taking anything between 1 to 2, 3, 4 months to grant at the moment. Okay, and the studies that you've taken must be closely related to the nominated occupation. So for many of you who are studying the diploma, you do have to be careful because the college that you're studying at must have their course recognised on CRICOS, which is the registration for colleges for international students. They must have the diploma recognised on there as being at least 92 academic weeks. So I imagine some of you are from different colleges, so it does depend, and that's where every migration case is unique. So you always have to look at it carefully each time. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. All right, so I'm going to go through, there's 4 pathways I'm going to talk about all together, okay? And then what I'll do is after that I'll explain exactly in more detail what the training visa is and what the Dharma is, but I just wanted to take you through the pathways first of all, and because I think that's what you're all here to see. Immigration is a lot harder now than it ever has been in the past. Australia is a very popular country to live in, and I'm sure many of you have been here through some of the changes that have happened in the last 2 years, which have impacted those of you who are studying the diploma, because it's much harder now to apply for RSMS, which is the Regional Skilled Migration Scheme, sponsorship with a regional employer. Much harder to apply for that unless you have 3 years of full-time work experience post-diploma. But I'm going to be talking through these pathways with you to see what other options there can be. So the very first one is to apply for is for those of you who have studied a bachelor degree, okay? So this is the Bachelor in Early Childhood Teaching, to qualify you as an ECT. And that's where there's 2 pathways available to you in this instance. Okay, so the first one is once you hold the 485 for 2 years, you can then gain work experience during that time as a teacher with a childcare centre. That can be in Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra, Darwin, wherever you choose, it doesn't matter. After 2 years, that centre can then sponsor you on the 482, the TSS, the Temporary Skill Shortage Visa. They can sponsor you on that visa because ECT is on the long-term list, so it would mean you could obtain a 4-year visa, and after 3 years on that visa you could apply for permanent residence as long as the centre is willing to sponsor you again for the permanent visa. Okay, so that's one pathway after the bachelor degree. The other pathway is if you are on the 485 for 2 years, you can gain at least 1 year of work experience as an ECT. You would apply for a skills assessment. Now, if you've done a diploma and then a bachelor degree, so you don't have a 4-year bachelor, the skills assessment needs you to have an English test, which is the equivalent of IELTS 8 in speaking and listening and 7 in reading and writing. If you do a 4-year bachelor degree, you don't have to do that English test, okay? So you would apply for that skills assessment. Obviously you'd need to obtain that high level of English. By the way, if you choose this option and you have a centre willing to sponsor you, the highest English you will ever need to have at this point in time is 6 in all bands, okay, at this stage. Now I just want to draw your attention to, I've put this after every pathway, that this is a generic guideline only, okay, so each case is unique, and we'd have to look at your case individually in a consultation if we want to proceed further in that way. All right, so if you are able to get that skills assessment and you can apply, you can then look at the points test and apply for general skilled migration with either independently or with a state nominating you. So when you have a state nominating you, that provides more points. Now I think the next slide, actually I think we're going to do a case study next. Yeah, so I'm actually going to do a case study for someone who has a bachelor degree. I've just realised I've got a microphone attached to me and I'm not certain how I'm going to do that. I'll just pull this. You'll come with me? Okay. All right, here we go. Okay, so I just wanted to do, is there anyone here who's willing to do a case study, willing to put up their hand, who's actually studying the bachelor degree at the moment? It's Michaela, isn't it? Michaela. Yeah, that's right. Vignotti. Okay. Yeah. Well, we have seen each other before. Okay. Now, are you willing to do your points test for us all?
Yeah.
Because Michaela is actually studying the bachelor degree at the moment. And we could look at, let's say we're going to do a points test for you. Okay.
So my age.
Yeah, let's look at your age. All right, fantastic. Okay. So age, so you get points for your age. And by the way, the minimum number of points is 65. So we'll be looking at that. Ideally more, because it's now becoming more competitive, and the more points you have, the more likely you are to obtain an invitation, which is what you then need to be able to continue the application. I'll explain more about that in a moment. All right, let's look at your English and what you have at the moment and what you might have in the future. Okay, I forgot to put your points there. Sorry, it's 30 for your age. Okay, so you've got 7.5. Okay, fantastic. So every band above 7. Fantastic. Okay, wonderful. So now that gives Michaela 10 points for her English level. So that's great. All right. That's what you want to be aiming for. These days, really, when you're doing the points test, it's quite difficult to avoid the necessity to have IELTS 7 in all bands. I see a few heads nodding. I think you're aware of that. All right. So now we'll look at your qualifications. Do you have once you finish your bachelor degree? So we'll look at what we're looking at is the future as well, not right now. But when Michaela actually finishes her qualification, that will give her 2 sets of points. Actually, it'll give her 15 points for her bachelor degree, and then for the Australian study requirement, it'll be a further 5 points. Okay. All right. So you're going to finish. Now, what we're also looking at, if Michaela is able to work for 1 year as an ECT, I mean, that should not be too hard because there is a big demand for early childhood teachers in Australia. So let's say when she is able to work 1 year in Australia on that 485, that 2-year 485 visa, that will actually give Michaela 5 points, okay, for Australian work experience, Australian skilled work experience. All right. Okay, so that's another 5 points there. Okay, now we could add that up, and we could also look at state nomination, because the occupation of ECT, early childhood teacher, is actually on the list of New South Wales state nomination. So we could look at that as well. Let's put New South Wales state nomination and see how many points that gives. That gives 5 points. So let's just calculate that total now. I'm sure you've probably already calculated it. I just have to go through that. 30, 40, 55, 60, 65. So we've got, that would be 70 points based on Michaela finishing her qualification, obtaining 1 year of work experience as an ECT, and also obtaining New South Wales state nom. So without that, obviously the points would be 65. Now, so the process is, basically, you need to apply for the points test, but you need to apply for an invitation. So you do, and you get that from an EOI, which is the expression of interest. Okay. All right. Now, once you get that invitation, then you can apply for the visa, and only then can you obtain the bridging visa that would be associated with your 189 or 190. Just for those of you who want to know what this visa is, the 489, that is also a state nominated regional visa, but it's a provisional visa for 4 years. After 2 years, you can go to permanent residence if you can show 1 year, a minimum of 2 years living in the regional area and 1 year working in any occupation in that region. And this gives you 10 points. So this here is the 190, subclass 190, and this is the 489. That gives you 10 points for nomination. So if, let's say Michaela wanted to do the 489, that would then give her 75 points. So it puts her in a very competitive place because there is a limit to the number of occupations available for each occupation in each state and also nationwide. Okay, so that gives you an idea. All right. Okay, so there you go. There's a case study. Let's move on to the next slide, and I'll talk you through the next part of the process. All right. Okay, so this is the second pathway. All right. So you've done your diploma. So the next three pathways are going to be purely focused on the diploma. Okay, so we've talked about the bachelor. So the diploma, you've finished that and you want to go on to 485, and you're able to do that because you've got the English, you've got the work experience, etc. All right. Now, one of the ways to, another pathway to permanent residence is to work with a centre and obtain the position of assistant childcare centre manager, and after 12 months and after 12 months you could gain a skills assessment with the TRA, that's with Trades Recognition Australia, following the Job Ready program. So your centre needs to agree to be in communication with the TRA and then be able to say to them, yes, you're working as an assistant manager, and you're able to, and the TRA will assess you and also speak with the centre and ask for something in writing, and they actually come and visit the centre at the end. It's a three-stage process. The first stage is when you actually apply for the 485, then there are 3 more stages until the last one, the 4th stage, which is when they give you your actual skills assessment. Okay, now the questions I have around that is, can I work as a room leader and an assistant manager? Well, the results that we've seen are that the TRA is actually approving applications like that, where someone's working as a room leader and an assistant manager, and also they are not taking into account the pay slips, even if it's the wage for a room leader. That's what we're seeing right now. Of course, the TRA is the skills assessment, and then you've got the Department of Home Affairs, which is the next stage. So you obviously you need to be aware that the Department of Home Affairs can make different decisions as well. But at this stage, it seems that as long as the TRA is approving, then the Department of Immigration and Home Affairs is also approving at this stage. Okay, so you would go through the same process as a childcare centre manager with the invitation and the points test and so on. I think I'm going to do a case study for this one as well. Yeah, so I'm just going to do another case study. Does somebody else want to? I just have to. Someone want to do a case study? Great. Okay, excellent. Now I have to remember your names. If I do know, I might have to. Oh my God, sorry. I have to pull this. Okay. Fantastic. All right, great. Thank you, David. All right. Okay, who's going to do a case study? And I'll have to remember. Now we have actually spoken. Now I feel terrible because I don't.
Yeah, we have.
Yes, Anna, of course, Anna. Okay, so Anna, so you've completed. You're going to complete the diploma.
No, I'm doing the diploma.
You're doing the diploma at the moment. Okay, so but you're going to finish and you want to apply for the 485. You're working in a centre? Has the centre offered you the position as assistant manager, or?
I'm working as a childcare educator
at the moment as an educator? Yeah, that's the idea. Okay, so let's say you obtain that position. All right. Okay, so and let's have a look at your points test and all the possibilities around that. Okay, so just remember that a 485 visa in this instance after the diploma is 18 months. Okay, so it's 18 months, and the Job Ready program is 12 months. Okay, so you need to start that ideally, you know, before 12 months, let's say, you know, 6 months into your 485 visa. But in the event that it's already 8 months into that time, the TRA they're able to backdate up to about 3 months. Okay, so they can backdate your work experience if necessary with the centre. So that's good. But ideally, you know, you want to be starting this program as quickly as possible once you get your 485 visa. Okay, all right, so So let's say you've got that. So Anna, you've started that position, assistant manager with the centre. You're doing the Job Ready program. Now the centre and yourself, we can help do that application, but for some reason the TRA doesn't want to speak with migration agents, so that's something you organise with the centre. We can give you advice about it, but then we can obviously help with the application for the points test. So let's have a look at your points in that case. So age. 33. Okay, so because Anna passes one of the age barriers, her points will be 25 rather than the maximum of 30. So let's have a look at this. Okay, so 25. And again, the occupation of childcare centre manager is on the state nomination list for New South Wales, in Sydney, so for the 190 and for the 489 outside of Sydney. Okay. All right, so age, all right. Now English, what about your English at this point? You've got 7 in all bands. Fantastic, all these great English speakers in the room. Fabulous. All right, okay. Okay, so because it's not easy, I don't think, that test, regardless of how good your English is, it's also about how good you are at doing those exams, I think.
Okay. Which one that you all do, the IELTS or the PTA, which do you prefer, the IELTS? Everyone?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I know you get different kind of, yeah, yeah. Now, actually, you know, now that Linda's come in, I was going to introduce you to her before, like during one of the next slides, but I'll introduce you to her now. So Linda is an immigration lawyer. She's also a recruitment consultant, and she's working together with MM Migration to assist us in the area of childcare and hospitality. Yeah. So, but I will refer to that shortly. So yeah, yes. There we go. Okay. So English, you would get 10 points. Yeah, question.
Regarding the age points,
yes.
Does that count when you start the Job Ready program officially, or let's say you start with 32 or 30 and.
Well, that's a good question. Yeah. So the points actually counts when you apply. When you apply for the visa. So even if you have an invitation and then your age changes between the invitation and applying for the visa, then that does make that makes a difference. You will lose those points. So you'd have to apply for the invitation again. So it's a good question.
Means starting the Job Ready program.
Exactly. That's
position.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. Exactly. That's right. So so that's an important question. Thank you for pointing that out. So at this stage, obviously, if those points don't change until for another few years for Anna, so they would be maintained at this for that 12-month period for the Job Ready program. So that's English. And then what about your qualifications? You've done the diploma here. Have you done any bachelor degree in your own country?
Yes, in my country.
Okay, so and it doesn't matter what, as long as that bachelor degree is recognised in Australia, it doesn't matter if it's not in the same field as childcare. So we can put 15 for qualifications for the bachelor. Yes.
What do you mean recognized?
Okay, good question.
I couldn't get it.
Okay, all right. So it needs to be recognised as being the equivalent of an Australian qualification. So we use a system called the Country Education Profiles, which allows us to see if that qualification actually is recognised in Australia. But because there's a whole system whereby the universities in Australia use it, for example, to double check that if you want to do a master here, that your bachelor in your own country is recognised in Australia as being the equivalent to in the Australian qualifications framework.
I have bachelor in law, but I'm not sure if it's recognized.
If it's recognised. So there's a process that we can undertake in order to be able to assess that. Yeah. Yeah, because obviously those points are very important. Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so you can imagine there's a lot of details involved, and I have to be careful with the amount of details that I give you because we'll just run out of time. But yeah, these types of questions are really important, so thank you. All right, so your qualifications, and then your Australian, Anna, your Australian study requirement. So if we're studying for 2 years, at least, as long as your college diploma is recognised on CRICOS as being 92 academic weeks, then you'll get 5 points. So that's the Australian study requirement, and then your work experience. Once you get this job ready program and the skills assessment, you will then automatically receive, for Australian work experience, skilled work experience, you'll receive 5 points, okay, for that 1 year. And then if you look at, if you are sponsored by a state, so whether you're looking at the 190 or the 489, state nomination, so that would be to get extra points, either 5 or 10 points. So let's calculate your points here. So that'd be 25, 35, 50, 55, 60, 65, or 70 with state nomination. So you can see just by losing the 5 points for age, you need to make them up in another area. Okay, so you can see that this is quite a trend, and I think it's a cunning plan by the government to I suppose encourage people to go and settle in regional areas, and because this subclass here, the 489, is available only in areas outside of the main cities. Okay, so because it gives you 10 points, a lot of people will be applying for this visa, well, now and in the future. Okay, so that's just to give you an idea. All right, so there you go. There's a case study. Yes, question?
Something. If you could get the points
Yes.
over 65 or 70.
Yes.
For example, for English Band 8.
Yes.
In all of the parts of
Yes.
Can you still apply for this visa without doing job ready program after diploma? Or is it impossible?
Can you explain the question?
Yeah, so okay. So the question is that if you get all the points, you pass the points, but you haven't done the job ready program, can you still apply for this visa? Actually, well, no, not this pathway that I'm talking about, because in order to apply for permanent residence through either independent skilled migration or state nominated migration, you have to have a skills assessment. You have to nominate an occupation. So therefore you would need to have, okay. So yeah, so you would need to have a skills assessment, okay, after your diploma.
Can we send the expression of interest once we are doing the job ready program, or we have to finish first?
Okay, good question. Can you send the expression of interest whilst you're doing the job ready program? It's not a good idea, because if the department didn't realize you hadn't finished the job ready program and they gave you an invitation, you then have to apply within 2 weeks for your visa. Otherwise you lose the invitation. So it's not a good idea to do that. Yeah, but good question. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, so I already have the 485 visa.
Okay.
It's going to expire in September.
Okay.
Do you know about
The job ready program.
so it's too late? Or
It's going to expire in September, your visa, and where are we? February. Potentially you could look at the possibility of backdating, but I think it might be a maximum of three months. Yes, but your exact situation is going to feature in one of the next pathways, actually. Okay, so one of those pathways, yeah, that pathway is for your reason. I mean, are you working as an assistant manager? You're working as a room leader. Do you have the option, do you think, to work as assistant manager? Okay, so perhaps you and I can take your case, you're offline afterwards. Are you booked in? Because I'm seeing a few people, those who booked in first, I'm going to see you for a free 10-minute consultation after this. So perhaps there may be time, or, well, anyway, we can talk about that. Okay, so let's have a look at the next pathway, which is, now I'll move this back a little bit. All right. Okay, so the next one, okay, so the Dharma. All right, I will explain more about this Dharma. And then there is a pathway 4, as I mentioned, after this. Okay, so the other pathway for that I'm sure many of you are looking at is the Dharma that we've all been hearing so much about, the Designated Area Migration Agreement. I will go into more detail about what that is shortly, but that could be one pathway if you do a 485 visa and you go and live, let's say, in the Northern Territories, because the Northern Territories state government has released a number of positions under 117 occupations that where an employer can sponsor for these occupations even though they're not on any other list, including the state's own list. Okay, so that's a Dharma. Again, I'll tell you more detail about this soon. Now, the only thing with this is that I actually attended a webinar a few days ago run by the Northern Territory State Migration Department, and they informed us that there are 500 positions only available for the current Dharma. Now, 500 is not a lot of positions for 117 occupations. So that is something to really bear in mind. It's not necessarily going to be the solution. It might be for, you know, a few of you lucky ones if you manage to get one of those 500 spots, potentially, but it's not an absolute guarantee. So I'm telling you that now, and it's being filmed as well, because it's very important that you don't come away from here today saying, oh, Melanie told me to go and live in Darwin and I'll get sponsored through the Dharma. Okay, so it's not actually that. Okay, all right. So that's that's the Dharma. But I will tell you more detail about that in a moment. I'm just going to tell you about Pathway 4, however. Now that you know the reality of the Dharma and those 500 positions. All right, okay. So this is the fourth one. So all of you know probably, or maybe some of you know now, that the Regional Skilled Migration Pathway, which is regional sponsorship by an employer in a regional area, let's say Canberra, Darwin, Alice Springs, where else? Adelaide, it now requires 3 years of work experience. Once it's granted, you then have to remain in that regional area for 2 years. We've been getting a lot of these visas granted recently, which is great. The only thing is that it's very difficult now for people to apply for it. However, the pathway that I'm looking at for some of you, and again, I have to make a disclaimer, this is a generic guideline only, and you know, we haven't tested this as such, but I have heard that the department recently has actually issued they sent an email to the Migration Institute of Australia saying that they may recognise work experience on a training visa as skilled work experience. Also, in my opinion, if you are working on a 485 visa for 18 months as a room leader, and then you work on a training visa for another, let's say, 18 months or less on a training visa as a room leader, a training visa will be training you towards the position of a childcare centre manager, but you will be working as a room leader. So there is no reason why you can't use that as skilled work experience and combine that work experience to be able to apply for the Regional Skilled Migration Scheme. Okay, because that would then give you the 3 years of work experience. Now, obviously, we're looking at a long time, but for those of you who are not willing to undertake the bachelor, and you want to pursue this pathway, you want to continue to be able to work full time, this is one option. We have had many clients who have applied for the training visa after the 485 visa. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you what that training visa is, and then I'll tell you what the Dharma is. So I know you want to know more information about it anyway, no matter what I say. All right. Okay, so a Dharma. What is I'm going to tell you about the Dharma, sorry, not the training visa. I'll tell you about the Dharma first. Okay, so it's a designated area migration agreement. This at the moment, it's not just in the Northern Territories right now, it's been agreed in other states as well. But the reason there is so much interest in the Northern Territories is because the occupation of childcare educator is on the Northern Territories occupation list. That's why everybody in childcare, studying childcare, is talking about it. Now, even though it has been pre-approved, as it were, by the state, the company still needs to apply for a sponsorship. So that means that they have to prove to the State Department that they are actually in need of somebody from overseas to fill the position, let's say, of childcare educator. They have to prove that they have got an Australian, they've got Australians already working in that position, but they can't find any other qualified Australians who can to work in the position. They need to do labour market testing, which is advertising for the position to prove that they have tried to find other Australians. They need to pay a minimum of $48,510. There's special concessions, which equates to about $25 an hour, which is about the award wage. It's just above the award wage actually for a room leader. It takes about 1 month for that sponsorship to go through. You cannot apply for the visa until the company has the sponsorship, because the reason for that is you have to have a skills assessment, which is assessed specifically by the Northern Territory's government or the state migration department. They do the skills assessment to determine that you actually have the skills to do this, but they will not do that until the company has its sponsorship approved. So in order to do that, you would need to have you'd need to finish your diploma and show at least 6 months of full-time work experience in the occupation, which actually is not that much, really, okay? But again, so this, you need the company to sponsor you, you have to get the skills assessment, and there are 500 positions only at this stage. They have said that they may open up more later on, but we just don't know at the moment, okay? Now, lower English levels are required, which is a bonus. There are permanent residence pathways with this Dharma. So to gain PR, you have to have IELTS 5 overall, which is nothing like the 7 or the 8 that you have to in other pathways. The maximum age is 49 years old. You need to be on 3 or 4 years on a Dharma with any Dharma with the Northern Territories. It does not have to be with the same employer, so it's not like other forms of temporary sponsorship. You need to have been employed in your last nominated occupation at the time of the application, so you can change employers and you can change positions. Okay, so it's flexible in that respect. So it is that there are possibilities with this, but again, I have to emphasize, at the moment, only 500 positions for 117 occupations at the moment. That is the reality, okay? So I'll talk about the training visa now.
Can I ask you something?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So in this order, if we get a sponsor through DAMA, we have to
Yes.
wait 3 years in this sponsor visa to apply for
Permanent residence, yes, thank you. Yes, so 3 years. Yeah, so the question is, do you have to wait 3 years on the temporary visa before you can get permanent residence with the Dharma? Yes, is the answer. Okay? All right, so I'll talk about the training visa. So the training visa, what is that? We've been doing these for many years, and actually I even train other migration agents with respect to the 407 visa through the Migration Institute of Australia. So you need to show that you are being upskilled to the occupation of a childcare centre manager to be able to apply. You need to do a skills audit, a training plan. Now we have somebody who works with us. Some of you may know her actually. She's a trainer at one of the colleges, the childcare colleges, and she helps us with all our training plans, so she's extremely good at writing them. You can apply from the 485 visa, as I mentioned earlier. You do need to show 12 out of the last 24 months of relevant work experience or study experience. You can't be too overqualified for the position. So it's a tricky one. You have to really be careful about how you present all your documents to the department, but you can't create false documents, because the department will look back at all your other applications. They do that now, so you have to be careful. And as I said, work experience can be used for RSMS if the application is handled carefully and correctly. Okay, so yes.
Does this have to be work experience as room leader or already assistant childcare manager, or does
No, so that's a good question. Just to reiterate, this is not about having work experience as an assistant manager. This is about work experience as a room leader. So the work experience would need to be as a room leader. After your diploma, exactly, that's right. We'll go on to the, yes, yeah.
So if I am doing the skill assessment as a childcare manager director, can I apply
Yes.
for training visa after, or there is no?
If you're doing the skills assessment, well, you mean in case you would have to be very careful. If you've already done the job ready program and you're doing the skills assessment, it would be very difficult to prove that you need more training to be a childcare centre manager. because the Job Ready program is about actually working in the position toward, and then actually getting an assessment as a childcare centre manager. So that would be a tricky one. Yeah. That's probably if you need time to get an invitation and what have you. So that's, it would be difficult. But all of these things we would look at on a case-by-case basis. Okay, all right, let's have a look at. Yeah, no, that's all right.
This one
Sorry, Anna, yes.
doesn't require you to have the manager position
So this-
within 485.
No, so this pathway I'm talking about, and the 407, this does not require you to have the position of assistant manager. No, and this is the area that we're looking at recruitment in. So I'll just come to the next stage, actually, the next slide, just to remind myself as well where we are. Okay, so talking about how to make yourself job ready. So here we go. Here's the slide where I introduce Linda. I'm Melanie, by the way, so I just realised I don't think I introduced myself at the beginning of this presentation either. But yeah, so how to make yourself job ready. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. I wanted to introduce you again to Linda, Linda is an immigration lawyer and also a recruitment consultant, and we're working together in this area. Yes,
Now,
Anna.
before we continue to the next step, you said that, you didn't.
Yes.
That for this option, you need a
Yes.
diploma plus the 485 visa, then the training visa, and then plus 3 years experience. Those 3 years experience, you mean the ones that you get with these two visas, with the 485 and
Yes.
the 407?
Exactly. That's exactly right.
So for how long can you get this 407?
Okay, so that's a good question. Normally we look at applying for that for a period of 12 months. Now, it does depend on your skills audit, and it depends on how much previous work experience you have during your student visa or even before you've come to Australia. So there's a whole number of factors that we take into account. Now, you're able to use, what we may be looking at is the time it takes on a bridging visa between your 485 visa expiring and your 407 being granted. Normally with a 407 you have a further 2 months at the end of the training program, which would be 12 months. So you're looking then at 14 months. So what we're looking at is the possibility of stretching out your work experience for that period of time for as long as possible. If you apply for your 485 just before your student visa expires, because you get another 2 months after that, and you're already working as a room leader, there is a way that you can accumulate during that time period 3 years. And that's why in these cases we'd have to really look at each case on a case-by-case basis in order to maximize the time that you'll have to get the work experience, the 3 years work experience.
And those 3 years experience are full-time?
And that would be full-time work experience. Yeah, full-time work experience, exactly, that's right. And as a room leader. Okay, so that's important. So the reason I want to talk about you being job ready and how to write a good CV and so on is so in your folders you'll see some CV writing tips in there. So these have been designed there's a few pieces of paper in there. There's the steps that we take in order to help you with your application. You'll see some CV tips. And so if you have a look at those, I won't go through them all now, but just to alert you to the fact that we've got them there. So we wrote these specifically geared towards a childcare CV, because what you want to be doing is almost as soon as you're graduating, and this is for those of you who are studying now, you want to be ensuring that you are already as a student working in a centre that is going to be able to put you into a room leader position almost as soon as you have graduated. Okay, so they already have trust and confidence in your abilities, so that as soon as you have the diploma that allows you to work in that position, you can already apply, okay, for that room leader position. Okay, so that's something that we're taking into account. Now, for those of you who are attending the seminar, we're giving you, I'm going to tell you this at the end, a Dropbox link, and you're going to have a link there to specially crafted interview techniques and also interview questions that a childcare centre manager might ask you, so that you can prepare yourself for an interview. Okay, so we will give that to you as well. Can we go on to the next slide, David? Thank you. Oh, I think we missed one. Okay. Yes, this one. Okay. So yeah, so that's about how to make yourself job ready. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that in that sense is that we are here to help you. What we'll also have in that Dropbox, I mean, I'll mention it more at the end, is a CV template. So for those of you who want to send us CVs to assist you to be able to look for positions, potentially in regional areas, then that will help you, and the CV writing tips to put together a CV to send to us to then distribute to our employers in regional areas, but not necessarily just regional areas, also Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, because I mean, as migration agents, we already work with some employers in Sydney who are definitely interested in recruiting from amongst the student visas, and also those who are on 485s already, to potentially employ you on a 485 visa and then under the training visa, which would then give you, let's say you're in Sydney for those 3 years, it would then give you the opportunity to get the 3 years experience and then go to somewhere like Canberra, where we also have many employers who would like to sponsor for RSMS. It would give them, then you would have the opportunity to go there, have an interview, and then be able to move to somewhere like Canberra. Because I think one of the other things I wanted to say is, how are you going to choose what option you go for? Well, I think it really, if you're planning to move to a regional area, especially somewhere like Darwin, I really recommend that you go and visit it first. You can get some really good cheap airfares on Virgin or Tiger Air or what have you. I recommend you go there for the weekend, go and see some crocodiles, and that really realistic, see if you can actually live somewhere like Darwin. There's no point in going there, getting a job and then realizing you can't actually stay there. For those of you in a couple, obviously it makes it easier when you're moving to places like that, but there's a lot of single people too who go there, and there is a developing community of international students and graduate visa holders who and training visa holders who are working in these areas. So I think it's important for you to actually go and visit there. Okay, you really need to know about yourself. How resilient are you? You know, are you a person who is ready to take on the adventure and the experience of living in a regional area of Australia, or do you like the safety and the comfort of a big metropolitan city? I think you need to really look at that as well. That's actually really a very important point. The other thing is, you know, if you want to save money on the 485 and the training visa, because that does give you the option, that long-term work experience, to then apply for the bachelor in ECT later and be able to follow the pathway I talked about from the bachelor degree later on. So that is another possibility. So there's plenty of options here, and I've got a question here.
Sorry, just a question about
That's
the
all right.
training.
Yes.
The wages with that training visa is the same, like if I'm working as a room leader, I'm gonna earn the same, like, because I read online, like sometimes they pay less because you're under training. So.
No, for a training visa they have to pay the award wage for the position. Yeah, so thank you, that's a good question. But yeah, for the training visa, that's the good thing about that visa, is that the employer has to pay the award wage. They cannot exploit you and pay you less than they're paying any Australian in the same position. So that's really important. So that's the main thing that I wanted to say, and then I think we've got the last slide to have a look at, which is, okay, so I think was that the end? I think there was something else at the end. So, actually just go, no, sorry, if you just go backwards, sorry. No, sorry, if you just go, to the other one before the, okay. So, sorry, I thought there was something else, but I think I've already told you about the Dropbox that we're going to give you access to, so you can download those documents, including the CV template, and you're very welcome to send that to us.
Also, can I say, anyone that hasn't shown me your tickets, please do, so that way I can send you the Dropbox.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. Thank you, Marina. Thanks a lot. So yeah, these are what we have written up here are our own values and our philosophy at MM Migration. This is how we work. amongst each other in our team, but it's also how we work with you, our clients. We are all about, being positive, always finding a solution. We're very passionate about what we do. We want to get the best result for you. We persevere, we won't give up. We will constantly look to see if we can find a result and a solution. Often that takes patience. And we ask that of you too, because it takes patience, and let's face it, it takes time and money these days to apply for a permanent visa in Australia. But if you're willing to give that time and money, then there is, and you have this attitude, then there are many doors will open for you. I mean, that's the type of migrant that Australia needs, actually. And in order to live in a regional area of Australia, that's the attitude that you need also. So we want to empower our clients and ultimately give you peace of mind, which is, the permanent visa. Nothing gives us greater pleasure than achieving that for our clients. Okay, so I think that's really the last part of the presentation. I'm going to be doing some free 10-minute consultations, and then if any of you would like to book in for a consultation, you're very welcome to do so, to talk further about your options. Joy is here, she's our migration coordinator. So if anyone would like to speak to Joy about booking that, I know some of you who are here have already done that, have had a consultation with me already. But if you would like to do that, then please let us know. And as I said, please feel free as well to start sending through your CVs to us. Okay, any other questions at this point?
Yeah, I have last question. Like I'm doing the job ready program, but I just started in January. So
Yes.
my visa finished next year in February, so I'm
Okay.
going to have only like a year to do it.
Okay.
1 month extra, but I know I have to send the COE. But I don't know how long. It takes like 7 months for them to answer. So I don't know
Right.
what can I do, because I won't have visa anymore in the meantime.
So you're doing the job ready program,
Yes.
and your visa
But
expires already.
Yeah, I was told like after that I
Before
have to
it.
send the letter of the expression of interest. And
That's right.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that's the thing, that sometimes you'll get your job ready program result towards the end of your student visa. Is that right? And sorry, your 485 visa.
Yes.
And so you'd have to ask for get an expression of interest through and get an invitation very quickly.
Yeah, but I only have like a month, so
Yeah, so what other options do you have
Yeah.
potentially? Yeah, well that's a good question. What can you do at the end of a 485? And if you've done the job ready program, to go onto the training visa may not be a good solution. So I mean your only other option is to look at to stay. Well, I mean, what I will say is the occupation of childcare centre manager people seem to be receiving invitations quite quickly. For example, in 2 weeks. And that would then allow you to be able to apply to get the bridging visa, so that you could apply and and your visa would expire, but you could have a bridging visa already. If that doesn't happen, then what I would suggest is, before you apply for the expression of interest, is that you apply. The only other option is to look at a student visa application and apply for another student visa. But you have to be careful, because if you've already you need to do that before you apply for an expression of interest, because otherwise the department can have a look, the student visa department can have a look at your application and say you're not a genuine temporary applicant because you're intending to apply for permanent residence. So you'd have to be careful about when you apply for your student visa.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So that's important information for anybody else in that type of situation. Okay. Does anyone have any other questions at this stage?
Sorry,
Yes.
within the job ready program for someone that has done diploma,
Yes.
is it interesting if I already try to find this job outside Sydney, in a place that is
Yes.
considered regional, even though I'm not going for the regional skill visa, to add points, or no?
If you try and find a job outside of...
As a childcare
So, yeah.
center assistant manager, to
Yeah.
enter the job ready program, and at the end to add
It
points,
is.
or
It's just,
no?
yeah. It is only if It's just that, so New South Wales does sponsor for that occupation, and other states do as well, but the other states that sponsor, the majority of them require that you actually live and work there for at least 6 months, and some of them require that you have a job offer or you're working that position already. So it would give you the opportunity to be sponsored in another state if you go and live there. And you can still apply for New South Wales nomination, for the New South Wales nomination, even if you're living in another state, like let's say the Northern Territories. Do you see what I mean?
No. But
No. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that to apply for, if you're doing the Job Ready program, what's the advantage you're asking of doing that in another state?
Yeah, I'm gonna start.
Yes.
The question is it worth it if I look for a assistant center manager position in a regional place to?
Yeah, well, it's a good
earn
question. Is it worth you looking for that? I mean, the other advantage of doing that is there will be less competition for places. You know, in some of the regional areas, there is much more demand because there are even less people applying for jobs in the regional areas, and so a centre in that type of area is probably more. There would be more availability, and they would be more willing to give you that position if they know it's going to help you to stay with them for the long term, also. And that way you could apply, as I said, if it's a state that is able to nominate you, has the occupation of childcare centre manager on that state list, then that could give you more points as well. So in some ways there may be a migration advantage, but there may be an employment advantage also, which then is a migration advantage. Do you see what I mean? Finding it easier to get that job in a regional area. So yeah, that's a possibility. Yes.
I'm about to finish the diploma in
Yes.
July.
Okay.
So I have those 2 months, like holidays until September.
Yes.
So when would be the best time to apply for the 485? It would be kind of like to work these 2 months and then have to finish the visa.
Yeah.
Or to apply straight away after I finish the
If you look at the pathways that I have been talking about, what you need to have your 485 and every other visa for as long as you possibly can. So ideally you want to apply as close to your visa expiring as you can without risking it, in order to gain more work experience on your student visa and then more work experience on your 485 visa. Okay? All right. Yes.
I'd like to know what's the maximum age to get the PR through the DELA project, because
Mhm.
if I understood
Yes.
the DELMA you can apply until 49 years old.
49 for the permanent residence. Yes.
Also the PR?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. They're making it very attractive because they want people there, even though they're only offering 500 positions at the moment.
Sorry, I don't know if we're in France, she's the same question. If I apply for the 407 and I'm in my own job,
Yes.
so during that 12 months, I can look for a job in a regional area. So do I need to stay in my position for 12 months?
If you're on the 485 visa.
No, 407.
Oh, the 407. Yeah, so once you're on the training visa on the 407, you do need to stay in that job because that company will sponsor you. Okay, so it is a form of sponsorship.
After that, how can I do to find a job in a regional area? Because after my visa expires, I mean, what I'm going to do?
No, yeah, you're right, but the thing is, I mean, we've done this many times before. We've taken people from their training visa in Sydney and we help them to get RSMS in Canberra, because a lot of centres in Canberra and other regional areas of Australia, they are really quite desperate to have people, and so they will usually employ and then sponsor straight away. Yes, yes, as long as they're satisfied with you, with the interview.
12 months, I need to apply.
Yes,
Either we do by myself.
exactly.
So I need to just keep.
Yes, but that's what I want to say. So particularly for the 407 visa, that's where Linda and I are working together to look at finding employers for you in regional areas or in metropolitan areas. Yeah.
They will take into account any you've had that experience over different jobs. So any childcare centre will be
That's
very,
right.
very willing to look at you with all that experience.
Yeah, that's right. So, okay. I think it's only appropriate that we have a child here for a childcare seminar. And I think, as I was saying earlier, my own son, who's 4.5, he's actually coming here at the end at 5:30. So I probably should finish soon and start doing those free consultations. Yes.
So I don't study diploma here in early childhood.
Yes.
But I have experience working with kids like 14 years already.
Yes.
So sorry, I forgot.
That's okay. That's all right. We can come back if you like. We'll come back to you. You will remember it. Yeah. Well, I'll take another question and then you'll remember it. Sorry. There was someone behind you who had a question. Yes.
I've been on 45 visa.
Okay.
It expired and now I'm on a student visa, so I'm dependent.
Okay.
And I came from Canberra today, just to attend this.
Oh, fantastic. Good for you.
Thank you. So I'm wondering is that if I look at these programs, I can't see any ways for me. I don't know, but
Okay, well then you're a pathway I haven't talked about potentially, because depending how long you are on the student visa, if you've been on the 485, are you working in a childcare centre?
yeah.
Okay, so imagine you're on a long-term student visa. What are you studying now?
My partner is studying.
Oh, sorry, you're the secondary applicant, that's right. Is your partner studying a master degree?
Oh no, she's doing community service.
Okay, so you're able to work part-time?
Yeah, I'm doing 20 hours.
Okay, right. So in order to get enough work, so have you worked as a room leader already?
I worked for 7 months in Perth as room leader,
Okay.
and then came to Canberra. And I'm assistant room leader.
Okay, all right. Because if you're able to work as room leader, your part-time work experience can equate to full-time work experience. In other words, if let's say you work part-time for 1 year, that can equate to 6 months full-time. So if you continue to work part-time on the student visa, as well as the work experience on your 485 visa, you could gradually accumulate enough work experience to equate to 3 years of work experience, and then you need to get IELTS 6 in all bands, which I'm sure you can do, and then you could be sponsored for RSMS. So thank you. You've just given me the other pathway that I haven't spoken about, but that is a possibility.
I haven't worked as a room leader.
But you would need to work as a room leader. Yeah, yes. Now the only thing with that, of course, is the reason I don't probably mention that so much is because I know it is harder to work as a room leader if you're working part-time and not full-time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So if your partner studied a master degree, you would then be able to work full-time, let's say for 2 years, and then you could maybe bring all of that experience together. But that would be a potential pathway for you. Or the other way could be that you could go on to a training visa.
So one last question. So henceforth, if I ask my employer to give me a position of room leader, let's say now Thursdays and Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Yes.
I can work 20 hours exactly. As a room
Yes.
leader.
Yes.
Give me a contract saying that I'm a room
That you're a room leader and you're paid as a room leader. That's important. Your pay slips are important to show that.
Would you think 24.85 an hour? Is there an average?
Yeah, I don't have the award in front of me, but I'm quite familiar with that. It sounds like the award wage for a room leader, but I would double check it. Yeah, yes. So that could be the way forward for you. Or, as I said, you could continue on the student visa and then maybe ultimately go on to a training visa to give you more experience full time. That could be another option for you also. Okay, so thank you. Thank you for that. I hope that's given you something, because I want your journey from Sydney to Canberra to be worthwhile.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Good. I know, I was just in Canberra the other day and I drove back. Yeah.
Just probably the next question would
Yes.
you recommend us to work part-time? Because I'm working as a casual and I'm thinking just what you said. Oh, should I be working part-time instead as a casual?
If
so
you-
I can accumulate full-time work experience.
No, well, the thing is, if you have not finished your diploma already, you can't work as a room leader.
Oh, okay.
because you can only work as a room leader. Thank you for that point, but you can only start working as a room leader when you actually hold the diploma, because the childcare regulations stipulate that you must have a diploma to be able to work as a room leader. So that's why
So certificate is
that's
not
no. You can work as an educator, but not a room leader.
But casual hours doesn't matter if you're a permanent casual. I know
It
it's not
doesn't
something
matter. So it doesn't matter if it's casual hours, if it's part-time work experience, it's 20 hours per week, you can still use it.
as-
Exactly, as long as it's room leader later on, yes, once you've got your diploma. Yeah, so another question.
Question?
Yes.
For RSMS, they require 3 years experience, but when I'm doing the 485, I do mostly is casual worker and half year for part-time. But the casual work, I work over 30 hours a week already.
Okay.
But now already I'm accumulating in one company almost 2,000 to 3,000 hours already in one company for childcare. Is it
Okay.
count as a 3-year experience, or in this case, for the casual but work like full-time hours?
But you've done that on your, on the 485 visa, nothing on the student visa. Obviously you can't show that you're working more than 20 hours per week
Yeah, because
or 40 hours per
45
fortnight on a
is
student
over
visa.
20 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I think you need to actually show. It's a tricky one actually, isn't it? Because if you're saying you're working more than, let's say you're working 45 hours a week, can you actually put that together? I honestly would have to check the regulations on that. I don't think the department would favour it. I think they want to see the time. So they want to actually see 3 years, even if it's, and they're basing it on a 35-hour week actually. So as long as it's part-time experience, part-time, like normal part-time hours, then you can equate that to, 1 year full part-time to 1 year full-time. But to do it the other way around, to show that you've got, I don't think you would be able to do that. So what you're saying is you've done 18 months of work experience, but in that time you've done actually 2 years of work experience. I don't think the department would accept it. It's a great thinking. I wish we could do that,
Because I already do it.
Yeah. I mean, I wish we could use that to help you. I would be concerned about the department actually accepting that. Do you think that, Linda, also? Yeah.
In fact, something I remember something like.
Yeah, I think it would be tricky to do that. I can't imagine. Yeah, I can't imagine the department accepting it. Yeah, because otherwise everyone would go out and do it, and then it just takes away the whole reason they've asked for 3 years of work experience. Yeah, but question here.
So,
Yes, that's all right.
Last one.
Yeah, sure.
So one of the pathways you've shown is that, well, first of all, I'm already on 485, and then if I do continue on 407, and then decide that I haven't accumulated enough work experience or something, and I
Yes.
still continue to do bachelor,
Yes,
I lose that 485 because I cannot apply for it again after bachelor.
that's right.
So
That's a
then-
good point.
And both of the pathways you've shown for ECT, they
Yes.
include that experience gained after the qualification.
That's right. Yes.
So how do I go around that if I already use my 485 and I still want to do bachelor after a few years of
Yeah, it's a good point. I haven't mentioned it because then it tends to get very complicated. But now that you've asked about it, so that is if you've done a 485, a 407, you still don't have enough work experience, so then you study a bachelor degree. But during that, the potential is that during the studies for the bachelor degree, you could be maybe working as a room leader part-time, right? And you could
Potentially I
accumulate
do
that
two
experience.
visas before. But for example, my 485
Yes.
went quite quickly, everything.
Sure.
So I was counting for a bit more time
To
get
be
that
able
time.
to get that time.
Yeah.
Yes,
So I'm
okay.
not sure how
So in your case, it would be very useful for you to have the 407, the training
Yeah,
visa.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you go to different pathways.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's
Focus
the thing is, if you, let's say you finished your bachelor degree and you still don't have enough work experience to be able to apply, let's say for RSMS, is that what you're saying? What would you do, because there's no other 485 after the bachelor?
If I do continue working full time on this visa and on 407 and
Yeah.
then go for bachelor and still get part time experience, I guess there's no reason for me not to be able to apply for RSMS.
That's right. If you could get part-time experience as a room leader whilst you are studying the bachelor degree, that could be the pathway for you. That's right. The only thing is you'd have to continue studying the bachelor at the same time as applying for RSMS, so you'd have to be careful about that.
Is there any way to get sponsored after bachelor
Yes.
without doing the work experience?
Without having the work experience, without having enough work experience to have 3
No,
years?
because I would still have work experience, but I think after the highest
Yes.
qualification it starts to count. So my diploma experience wouldn't be as important as my ECT experience, and I won't have any of that after I finish ECT. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do know what you mean, but yes, I think what you're saying is if you don't, once you've finished your bachelor degree, if you don't have 3 years of room leader experience to apply for RSMS, what do you do then? Is that right? Really, your question? Okay.
I'm thinking
So
about skilled visa after bachelor.
Yeah, no. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're talking about the points test.
Yeah.
Okay. So you'd have to look at the points test, and well, let's look at
And
it
if I
actually.
don't have the experience, I can still gather, and still can gather the points from other things.
Yeah.
I can still apply without.
So if we look at the points test was that okay? No, I think I'm going to crash into the,
Yeah.
So we look at that points test again.
Different, yeah.
So you're going to have to apply, you'll have 2 months at the end of your bachelor degree. This is when it gets difficult because you'd have to get that skills assessment, which can take 3 months. So either, and then you won't, in order to apply straight away, you wouldn't get this.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get the 5 points. You'd get the rest. Maybe you could get IELTS 8 in all bands. Well, you would need to get IELTS 8,
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
wouldn't you? So let's say you get 20 there. That then gives you 10 more points as opposed to the 5. So that would be the way to do it. But then what about the time that it takes to get the skills assessment and and apply for the invitation and the visa?
Then my partner could go on to student visa.
Okay, so then in your case you've got a partner who could go on to a student visa. Otherwise you might need to apply for another student visa. Get your student visa and then do this application so that
So there is
Yeah.
still a way.
There is always a way, yeah. There is always a way, yeah. It may take a long time. That's what I'm saying, That's why one of the, the words that we use in our philosophy is perseverance. If you really persevere, and there is an expression where there's a will, there's a way. Really, if you really want something and you really are determined to get it, then there is a possibility to do it. The childcare industry in Australia is just growing. It's growing all the time. And the need for educators, room leaders, and early childhood teachers is enormous. Those occupations I don't think are ever going to come off the list. I think it's very telling, it's a good sign that occupation is on the Dharma, because it shows that all these regional areas, they desperately need that occupation. I was in Canberra 2 days ago, and people there, it's not just childcare and hospitality, and all these areas in regional areas, they desperately need people. So it's our job to find those pathways and to help you as our clients to get to that, to where you want to go. Another question here, yeah. Yeah, sure.
I have experience and qualifications from back home to work with people
Yes.
here. Can I do like recognition of the prior learning? Would that be recognized or not?
Okay, so if you have skills and work experience and a qualification back home, would that be enough to look at recognised prior learning? It can be. I think you and I have spoken about this. So it depends on your qualifications. Obviously, we always have to look at this on a case-by-case basis. And it depends on what those qualifications are as to whether they will be considered the equivalent of, let's say, an early childhood degree here. Sometimes they might be considered the equivalent only of a diploma. But that means that then any work experience as a room leader, since you've been working in Australia, can be counted as skilled work experience.
Okay, so I can do recognition.
Yes, I mean you can. Yes, if your qualifications are the right ones and they are recognised, there is a process of doing that through a CEQA, which recognises early childhood qualifications. The only thing with a CEQA is if you don't have a passport from the UK, Ireland, or New Zealand, or Canada, or the US, you need to have the same IELTS score as the AITSL for the early child teaching, which is 8 in speaking and listening and 7 in reading and writing. It is academic. Yeah, it usually is for teaching, any teaching qualification. The IELTS is usually academic. Okay. I might have to just finish soon because otherwise we're not going to have enough time to do the consultations. I think, is everyone here who's booked in? I think who gave their CV? Is everyone, I think everyone is here? Okay. All right. Well, I'll take one more question in that case.
Is there any other option if you're 49 years old?
If you're 49?
And I'm on 482 visa.
On the 482 visa. Oh, so what's the occupation? ECT. Okay. Get yourself to Darwin. Sorry, I don't mean to be so, flippant, but.
If I'll do the Dharma, but I'll be over 49 or after 3 years. Will that be?
Yeah, no. This is the thing. If you would need to do that time, and then it would be more difficult. So, there are some ways, some pathways. If you're paid a salary of more than 145,400, it's 400. You for 3 years, then the age requirement, can be waived. But there are, or you can look at, or if you have children here who become permanent residents, they can sponsor you for a parent visa. That's something that we've looked at in some other cases. Otherwise, you would want to stay here. I'm not certain about your partner, if you have a partner who's older or younger or what have you. Those options are available, but it is, it's harder with regards to age. Yeah. Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any? Well, I think I said that was the last question, didn't I? Otherwise, I will never start these things. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody, and you'll all be getting a link. Okay. Great to see you all. How many people here are from MEGT, actually? Quite a few. And anyone from SELC? Anyone here from SELC? SBTA? Anyway, no, it's mostly MEGT. Oh, it's great. Well, those of you at MEGT may have seen me giving seminars there before, actually. And we do have somebody here from someone else here from MEGT. The marketing manager is here, Betty. All right. Okay. Great. Thanks very much, everybody. I'll take this off now.
Yeah.
You have done very well, haven't you? My goodness, it's not easy. I know. I just realised something. I have all these toys.